Can you see that?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so maybe I think we should go straight into it. So let's start. So welcome everyone to the October seminar. We have Sebastian who is going to talk about second chances. As usual, Sebastian, you're okay, happy to take questions during the presentation?
Yes, of course. I got my PhD at U Chicago, so I'm not afraid. You should.
So yeah, please feel free to interrupt. Make Sebastian feel like he's still at Chicago. But if you're not, then please.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Um, and please keep your microphones otherwise on mute. And as usual, the recording will be available hopefully by tomorrow, but maximum by Monday. Okay, 1 hour, Sebastian, basically leaving the last maybe 10 minutes for last minute questions and a bit of discussion and stuff. So 50 minutes if you aim for that. Over to you.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm very glad to present this work in progress to this audience. I'm super happy to take questions, not pictures, but questions from you guys, because this is work in progress, and especially at the very beginning, in which we are trying to pitch the paper, I think that would benefit a lot from your ideas. And if you have them, just shoot them on the fly, and then I would re-accommodate things with the presentations. I have many slides, but not all of them are that relevant. So,
but Sebastian, there will be pictures of you.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine too. That's fine too. So well, this paper is written together with Veronica Frisancho, who is the chief economist of research at the CAF Development Bank. And it happens that she wrote her job market paper on this topic of retaking exams and with data from Turkey. And it's widely cited. So this is part of why we are working together, because I'm bringing data from Chile. This paper is about retaking high-stakes exams using Chilean data. So what the motivation behind these papers is asking whether these second chances do matter, and in the context of centralized admissions, we know that scoring below the threshold, can have like important consequences, and this is well documented in the recent literature. And I didn't know what to cite, because there are many papers that you may know using not only centralized admission system data, but also data from Chile. Many of my colleagues and friends are writing about this or already published about this. But what the topic of student responses to failure is something that it's still a study topic. And there are a few good papers on immediate outcomes. So one, I would say that like one of the most famous one is the one by Goodman and co-authors for the US, the one that it's called like Take Two SATs. And then, well, it's a paper by Vero. And then, well, there's another recent paper at the JPE Micro using data from China. And these papers are focused on immediate outcomes. So what happens right after retaking, or what are the consequences of retaking in terms of enrollment, for example. In this work in progress, we are using the Chilean data to examine the prevalence and characteristics of retakers in this other context, which is not only like a different context, like sort of a developing country, but also that like the rules are different compared to the China and the US case. And we document what we believe are causal effects of retaking college entrance exams on not only like immediate outcomes like enrollment, but also on placement and longer run outcomes like graduation outcomes. So we basically implement an RD. I'm gonna what our RD is about, I'm going to actually sort of build the idea for the RD, and I hope to convince you that there is a valid RD here. But the important thing I believe is that we can follow up with these admin records for over 15 years. So we would know whether people graduated or not, and so on. And we are also working on getting data from the labor market, which is something that I don't have yet, but it's another thing that that we want to show in this project. Our preliminary findings are the following. So we find that test takers who narrowly miss their preferred program cutoff increase their likelihood of retaking by a third. And that, of course, I mean, that has consequences because they increase their final scores by 0.24 standard deviations, and that has natural consequences on enrollment, especially for the top preference, okay? And this is another thing that we do have and that the literature does not have, which is like preferences for programs / majors, universities from test takers and the retakers. So this is something that we are actually playing with that too in this paper. We find that the effects are not do not seem to be driven by changes in selectivity, meaning that it doesn't seem to be the case that 1 year you go and you take your exam and you didn't make it, the next year you say, okay, I'm not that good enough, so I'm gonna go down on selectivity and I'm gonna choose something that it's that has like much lower cutoff scores. That's not driving the effect. Well, I told you that this is in progress, but basically people are already like making, because of the retaking, they are increasing their final scores, and that has a result on admissions and enrollment, especially for the top preference. And if you do that, probably you're going to go to sort of better programs you would have gone to in your counterfactual scenario, and that is basically telling us, oh well, you're going to better places that have higher wage expectations and more prestige. And we also find that these seem to come at the cost of more years to graduate from college, which is like an important result. And we really want to think very carefully about it. And your ideas here will be super important.
Sorry, Sebastian.
Yes.
Sorry, Eva, go ahead.
It's okay. I don't know if it's hurting me that I come from a system of centralized exams for both high school and college. So I wasn't sure, are these high school or college exams?
My question as well.
Okay,
yeah, I'm so sorry. No, this is a yeah. Continue.
Yeah, so you can answer. It's okay. So college.
Yes, these are high stakes tests for college. Yeah, so
Okay.
these are people that completed high school, and then the centralized admission system is for college or higher education.
Okay, so that means implicitly you have to wait another year then. There is no, so like I'm from the Czech Republic, like we have 2 rounds. So you take your top choice in the first round. If you don't get in, you still have one date that everybody's taking their second choice exams to be able to get into a different program. So one shot only in Chile?
Well, we have this sort of deferred acceptance system, more or less. So basically,
so it's
you
more
list
like an ACT, like everybody takes the same test and just the score counts?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And then there is a list of preferences. And then the system is supposed to be truth-telling in the sense that you should list your true preferences, because if you don't get admitted to your first preference, well, you're going to get admitted to your second preference. Okay, but
so, yeah, so I think it would be helpful to kind of, because some people are familiar with, right, the SATs, ACTs, and sort of that system. I was thinking this is more like what I was used to from Europe. So I think maybe clarifying when you're
absolutely.
pitching this first, how it actually works. So if you don't get in, you have more time to study, prepare. I think it kind of makes sense you'd score higher, but you're also taking a year of wait, but you're saying you graduated the same age by the last bullet, or you just take the same time to finish college? Because if I have to wait a year longer, but it still takes me 4 years to complete college, like it didn't take me longer to complete school, but I am a year older than I would have been.
Yeah, no, we are finding that we count the time until graduation from the moment that you take the exam for the first time.
Okay.
Then there are no differences, and that's like a strong result. I'm impressed by that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just one follow up on that? So this thing is taken, the test is taken at the age of 18. Then is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So who are the decision makers in terms of if you retake it or not? I mean, in the sense that are the parents kind of pushing or deciding or whatever, or is it the individual generally making the decision?
Well, it could be. You're supposed to be an adult here, but yeah, I mean, it could be parents imposing some kind of pressure on your decision, of course. But yeah, so this is basically you take the exam once you finish high school, in December of the year. So you'll be 18 years and something, probably. I was 18 years and a half. And then if you do not get, I mean, you do not get to your, we're showing, if you do not get to your first preference, then the likelihood of retaking is sort of increases. But we don't know exactly. So are you thinking about like any sort of information about parental presence or influence on these
Yeah,
kids?
exactly. So it's kind of, if there is extra, I don't know, support provided.
Or even, right, like parental income or parental education, they might have higher aspirations for the kids.
Yeah.
So you're comparing so I'm thinking if I have a list of students with scores and I ended up being, let's say we both chose the same top college we wanted to go into, and then we ended up 2 and 3 spots below the threshold, which would put us into our next choice. So you're looking at the person who took that and went to the next choice versus the person who tried to retake and then got into the top choice next year?
Yeah, I think that I would like to show you the design, but we have information on household income, parental schooling, so we have those things. So I'm gonna show you, but yeah, so that's part of also your important because part of what is driving this is the idea of the regressivity of retaking. So if you, for example, in the paper in the US, it's pretty well documented that minorities and non-white students retake at a much lower rate. Yeah, and that's because of many things. They have less support. Their opportunity cost is higher. They don't have. They cannot go and have the luxury of just waiting another year or preparing more and so on. So that kind of I was expecting something similar in Chile. For the data that I'm going to show you, it's not that strong, with some caveats, because but I'm going to tell you more about that during the presentation. So let me go ahead if you don't have any more questions.
No, thank you.
Let me present. Yeah. So what we're doing is that we are using these administrative records for the population of test takers in the country for 2 years. We can do more, but we decided, okay, let's follow up these people because we can follow them up for up to over 15 years and match them to the administrative records on the population of enrollment in higher education and graduation in Chile. So the sample starts with the test takers in 2010 who are first-time test takers. And we know this because we can sort of merge this data, test takers in 2010, with the data for years 2009, 2008. We do it until 2005, I think. And we take them, all of those who are not first-time takers, we take them out of the sample. Okay? We want first-time takers in this first sample. And then after you take the test, you get the scores. Okay. After you get the scores and you know your scores, you provide a list of preferences. And once you do that, you become an applicant.
So after you get your score, so you get to inform your preferences given your score. Oh,
Correct.
that's interesting.
Yeah. So we and that basically, I mean, people, and this in part explains this drop in the number of observations, right? People know, okay, I'm not good enough. I'm never gonna make it, so I do not apply. And the cutoffs for each major and program are not known to people who would apply in that round, but they do know which was the cutoff score last year. And cutoff scores vary, so there is this randomness near the cutoff in the vicinity of the threshold, if you want. But we do know more or less. I mean, if you are too far away from that cutoff, that from the left, then you're not gonna make it. So in my case, I was like, I remember that I was well to the right of the cutoff for the economics major. And so I was saying, I tell my, actually connecting to your previous comment, I told my dad, I'm just gonna apply to economics at this university. And he was like super mad at me, like, no, what happens if the cutoff moves? And I was like, I'm like super, I mean, I well above that, but well, anyway, he was nervous. So there you have some parental influence. And I applied to some other things.
Distribution? Do you know like what percentile in the overall? No, you just get your score.
You just get your score. Yeah.
And can I ask is it set up so that they always fill? So that like if you, for example, were close to the cutoff and didn't want to risk it, like you took your dad's advice, right, and didn't apply to that school, like what if a lot of people behave that way and then they kind of didn't have enough? Is it set up that like the cutoff will move so that they fill all the spots basically?
Yes, that's the case. So the cutoff is defined by the universities and the schools within the universities, subject to capacity constraints.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
So that's why it's also like sort of random in a vicinity. So we don't know how it's going to move each year. So the first thing that I want to show you is like, okay, so who are the retakers among these about 50K observations? And I don't know, I thought that this was going to be starker, but it seems that the main message is that they don't seem to be that different on observables from non-retakers. So let me show you. Yeah, the retakers are like 2 percentage points above in terms of the fraction of female students. But then again, like in terms of, for example, those who graduated from private high schools, it's basically the same. You have a bit more of students from voucher schools in Chile, but the fraction of graduating from public high schools is also pretty similar. And we have a bit more of people coming out from the capital region in Chile. This is a score which is basically a GPA score from high school GPA score, and this thing, I mean, it moves between this is about 600 points. It has a standard deviation of about 100, so it's 110. So it's these guys are a bit have a bit higher of a GPA score from high school than immediate retakers, but it's not that different. So that's first takeaway. Here I have things on household income and parental education. And again, I was expecting something like starker here, but if you go here and you see okay, for the household income bracket, that is the highest one. Well, they are basically the same. The second highest one, they're again basically the same. So there are a bit of differences. It seems that immediate retakers are a bit more affluent than non-retakers, right? Because basically because of this one, and then this difference of 5 points is sort of distributed in the next brackets, but it's not that. I mean, it's not that super sharp difference. So they're a bit different, but not that much. And in terms of parental education, again, more or less the same. So advanced complete, this is basically having a college degree, basically more or less the same. Again, for parental education, for father's education, it's a bit higher, 3 points for retakers than non-retakers. So it seems to be that retakers are a bit coming from a bit better off socioeconomic backgrounds, but not that much. So that's the sort of the first takeaway from taking a look at the data. And now they behave differently in terms of admissions. Okay, so and that's the takeaway from the next couple of slides. So for the admission in 2010, those who did not retake, so they applied to 2 options on average. Immediate retakers applied to 3 on average. The non-retakers were admitted to basically 80% of their of any of the preferences. They were admitted at the rate of 80%, and immediate retakers only at a rate of 2 out of 3. But the thing that I want to show you is that it seems that the action is not happening. It's not coming from admission in the second or the third preference. Because here, I mean, it's basically the same. Here we have a bit more of admission in the third preference for retakers, but the action seems to be coming from what's going on here. So basically, retakers, the immediate retakers, were admitted only at the 20% when you take a look at the first preference, but non-retakers, they were admitted at the rate of 43%. Now this shouldn't be here. But then, like if we take what happened in 2010, of course there is nothing for the non-retakers because they did not retake. But for the immediate retakers, well, take a look. They apply to majors that is similar to the behavior that non-retakers had before. Their admissions go up a bit, but if you take a look at what happens with the admission to the third preference, well, it seems to converge to the behavior of non-retakers, and same thing for admission to the second preference. You see, but then the whole thing that's moving, the action is coming from here. So now admission to the first preference is 32%, which is much higher than the 19%, still below this one, but they increased that by a lot. And we are just taking a look at averages. We are not even in our RD yet. So it seems to us that, well,
do you know if their choices changed? Like, maybe my first choice was Chicago last year, but this year I'm just going to pick, University of Illinois.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So we can test that empirically. Okay. The short answer is that no, it doesn't seem to be that there is a change in selectivity of their preferences. But I'm going to show you some results on that. So it seems to be the takeaway from this first set of slides is that these retakers are not that different in terms of observables, but they're very different in terms of admissions. And then that was admissions, but now let's take a look at enrollment. And here, the structure of the data is basically the same that I showed you before, but now we're taking a look at enrollment instead of admission. So if you want, like, sort of the realization of what happened before and taking into account the decision to enroll or not. And again, like what we're finding is that there's of enrollment for the second preference, there is some similarity, if you want, for non-retakers and immediate retakers in the second and third preference. But there is this huge gap over here in the first preference. And then once the immediate retakers do take the exam, well, they jump from 14% of enrollment in the first preference to 31%. And basically the other ones stay the same, like super similar to what was happening before. So we are saying, we thought, when we jumped into this project, we said, okay, let's play with DRDs. There's something going on here. And originally we wanted to, come with DRDs for every single preference listed by test takers. But then, like, we were discussing this, it's like, but if you don't get admitted to your third preference or your fifth preference, would you be willing to, go and retake the exam? That was not super intuitive, but we said, okay, let's take a look at the first preference. And it turns out that the action is coming from there. And the explanation that we have right now is that, well, it seems the case that if you don't get admitted to your first preference, then your motivation is like, okay, if I have another shot, I can do it. And it is important because it's my first preference. And that's why we built our RD based on that. Let me show you one last thing about graduation rates. In terms of graduation, the non-retakers, they graduate at the rate of 77% versus 73% of non-retakers. It takes less, on average, we're not looking at the RD now, to graduate, like 6.6 years versus 7.87 years. And I think that's more or less the most important thing, but it doesn't seem to be, people are graduating here. Here is where the difference is coming from. They graduate between 4 and 6 years, which is sort of timely according to the Chilean lengths of the majors. Graduating between 4 and 6 is sort of a timely graduation, on time if you want. But then people end up graduating anyway from in the case of retakers. Now, this is not the RD yet. For the RD, these things are gonna be much smoother.
And Sebastian, I know, so you
yes.
must have the scores because you use them for the RD, but you didn't show us the average, just raw scores for the students, for the two groups, or did I miss that in the descriptive stats?
No.
Okay.
I
would want to see them, especially if that's what you're using for identification.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I would expect that they have to be lower somewhat, so.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe not. Maybe if you're shooting for higher programs, maybe you have, right? Like, so I don't know. I think I would want to see what they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Let me go ahead and show you the empirical strategy. And I think I do have the scores. And you're right. I should show that. It's weird that I have them. Yeah. Okay. And if I'm pretty sure I have them in one of the slides, after the conclusions, But let me go ahead because it's gonna be the main part of the discussion now, and we are jumping to the, well, we have some scores here. Let me show you something. It's not what probably this is not exactly what you wanted, but maybe it's sort of gets at that. This is super descriptive. We are not trying to build counterfactuals yet. So we are just showing here what happened to retakers. Right? So there are sort of three types here. I mean, there are 4 students, but sort of three types. Let me start by this one, the number 4. So this guy enrolled at nothing in his first tech, and then he retook the exam, and then he enrolled at law at the University of Santiago with an application score of 710 and a cutoff score of near 700. Then there is this other type, this person who enrolled in medicine at the University of Chile, which has a high cutoff score. And then we don't know what happened here. There is an option that he or she could have said, okay, I learned my type, or this is too much for me, whatever, and I'm gonna move to, instead of medicine, to odontology at another university. The application score, it's still high, the cutoff score is much lower compared to the previous one. So this is one person that moved between to a different career or major university. And here we have 2 cases in which people sort of stayed at the same university but moved between different careers or majors. Okay? So in this case, as opposed to this case over here, this one, he moved from to a more selective major, right? From social science to engineering, right? And then here, he moved the other way around, from sort of veterinary to medicine. Instead of medicine to odontology, she goes to medicine. And she goes from a less selective to a more selective major. So I'm not super sure if this is what you wanted to see, but this is to sort of visualize what's going on.
Yeah, but I think this is actually a little like I never thought of this as part of the retakers. I always thought they were just people who didn't go anywhere.
And like this one.
Yeah, but I also expected that you would have their score for the first take. So I'm like missing a category that I thought was the only one in this sample. Right? Like somebody who took the exams, they scored, they didn't get in, they did, right? And then they tried again. So like I wanted to see that example of what I thought was in the sample, but maybe your strategy is different. But I'm surprised that there are people who like start somewhere and then they have to test again to like switch. I didn't think of that as an option from the start.
Okay, so this is important. Let me see if I can clarify some things for you. This person in the first take, he or she has scores, scoring math, scoring language, and so on. But she doesn't have an application score if she realized, okay, these scores are super low or low compared to what I want. I'm not going to apply to anything. And so this person just did not apply. So
but
this is
what
why
about the people that did apply and didn't get what they wanted? Right, because this is sort of an extreme case of people who like completely gave up.
Yeah.
But I would think that there's and I thought that's where your RD is sort of going to be coming from, that you have the people who tried and just barely missed it or made it. And if I just barely missed it, then I'm going to try again.
Yeah, no, that's right. We should have one of those examples here. No, absolutely, we should have it. Let me show you now what is the R&D thing, and let's talk about it.
Just very quickly, sorry, Sebastian. What's the timing like? So when's the exam result found or taken? When do the exam results come? When do they apply, and what's the process?
So this is more or less like this. It's like December of a year, let's say 2009, they take the exam. Then December, let's say this was December the 6th. Then December the 21, they get to know their scores. Then January, this is 09, January 5th from 2010, application, this is application period. And then by the end of January, results are in. So you know whether you got in or not. That's more or less it.
Okay.
And then in March of that year, then the school starts. Okay.
So you have a couple of weeks, basically, pretty much, to decide if you want to go or not.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and things. And at this moment, where is it? Here, in between here, you get a lot of information from universities. The market starts working, and if you got like a high score, some universities are gonna start looking for you, offering scholarships and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
So the empirical strategy is super standard, I would say, with one little thing that I'm going to explain. And basically, sort of this would be like our reduced form, where we have our outcome, and then ZI is going to be a dummy variable if the student had a score below the cutoff and 0 otherwise, and f of b, it's just a function of the distance to the cutoff center at 0, with interactions to allow for different slopes at both sides of the cutoff. And we do include x's to increase precision. That shouldn't change the magnitude of our parameter of interest, which would be this one. Okay, and so this is all sort of the reduced form equation. Then what would be like our sort of first stage is whether you were a retaker or not, on the left, and then we would estimate our hat and then use it in our second stage equation, which is this one, which is basically following the Chinese paper published this year at JP Micro. Just taking the difference between the final and initial outcomes as our main outcome to the left of the equation. So our sort of second stage equation is this one. Okay, and I think that this is we thought that this was a pretty clever way of getting at what was going on, because when you have this difference, then we're actually measuring what retakers gained or lost because of the retake. So the very first thing that here is the following. So here we have the application score to the first preference in 2010. This is what we have over here. And here we just have the dummy of whether you take the exam the next year. Okay. So basically, this is saying, look, if you were just below the cutoff to your first preference, you have a higher likelihood of retaking as compared to having a score just above the threshold. There is still some retaking, but the difference here, it's about, this is about like something like 4 or 5 points or 12. So this is the 33% of the difference. And this is basically what is moving. This is our first stage, right? This is the retake variation. There are other things going on. I mean, here that
Sebastian, sorry, I just
yeah.
wanted to say that you have about 12, 13 minutes. Okay, so just so that you know.
Okay. Then there are other things that are pretty standard. Well, we don't want the running barrel to be manipulated, and that we want other X's to move like smoothly near the cutoff. Here we have the tables because the graphs are sometimes we can, here is the statistical result that there is no difference near the threshold. We are using an optimal bandwidth of 28 points near the threshold and so on. The effects on scores. Let me show you this table. So this is the difference in raw scores, which is not a lot. But the difference is what it is important. And I'm gonna what I think that it's very interpretable, because now you're like, okay, so we have no idea what these numbers mean. Explain, right? So let me use this one. The first stage, let me center here. The first stage is these 4 points over more or less 12 that was showing in the graph of showing the variation in retaking near the threshold. And then the treatment effect here, this is the 0.24 standard deviations that we were finding that I told you about in the very first or second slide of this paper. And basically this is saying, hey, look, this standardized score, it's increasing by a lot when you consider the difference in scores for the retakers versus non-retakers. And this, in terms of raw scores, this implies like a 17 points of additional score in your application score if you retook your exam. And if you remember, like the cutoffs before, it was like 700 and something, 600 and something. 17 points can really make a difference. So let me show you. Well, here this is the graph showing the difference in scores, basically, and this turns out to have an effect on admissions and enrollment. And let me show you the tables again. So this is the reduced form estimates on admissions. Here we have the same. This is the first stage, and then on admissions, well, the retakers, they get admitted like 3 additional points compared to the non-retakers. But what you would say, like, hey, yeah, well, that's not a lot, yeah. But once you take a look at what was going on at the top preference, is this one, the effect is important. It's like 16 percentage points and precisely estimated, right? So the action, this is like consistent with the thing that I was showing you at the beginning with the descriptive statistics. So the action is happening at the very top of the preferences, and this is admissions. And if we take a look at enrollment, which is sort of, I don't know, admissions do matter, but enrollment is sort of, I like to think about it as a harder, because it's a relevant decision for your life. I mean, admissions is like, okay, I got there, I'm maybe happy about it, but I'm not gonna take it. In this case, this is enrollment, and enrollment again increases, but not by a lot, like 2 percentage points. But then if we take a look at the difference in terms of the first preference, it's like 9 percentage points, and that's we are interpreting that as a sizable effect. And well, this is selectivity against the cutoff. For some reason, I think that the tables are better to explain than than the graphs in this case. But these are reduced form estimates on selectivity, and this is we are trying to get at the question that was raised at the beginning by you, Eva, which was saying like, hey, but is this some selectivity playing some role here? Do people, instead of applying to UCHICAO, they go to UIC, for example? And in this case, we are not finding differences in selectivity measured as the cutoff score for the top ranked preference or the top third preference, or the cutoff score as an average of all of your preference, or as an average of your three preference, or if there was a change in the interquartile range of your cutoff scores. So it doesn't seem to be something that we can, say, hey, look, this is being driven by this result on selectivity. It doesn't seem to be the case. One thing that we think is very relevant is that this result, that whether people graduated or not, does not change near the cutoff. And this is measured within 15 years of the first take of the exam. And the table is, well, this is the reduced form on estimates on graduation. So it's basically, I would say that's a 0 over a mean of almost 80%. And then time to graduate is, of course, conditional on graduating, right? So here we sort of reintroduce kind of selection, but because this is a 0, we take it with a grain of salt. But again, there is no difference in time to graduation, which is about 6.8 years for both takers and retakers, non-retakers and retakers. So there are not like a lot of difference in there. And I think that we think that this is like an important result. We want to dive in deeper in this, sort of getting at what is explaining this. Is it, and so far, we don't have hard evidence on the reasons behind this, rather than something like, these are guys that, I wanted to get in there, I did not, I retook the exam, and basically I could have sort of convalidated some courses from my first year if I enrolled at all, which some people do. For example, this thing of moving from medicine to odontology, or from veterinary to medicine. There are some courses that are sort of common to those majors. So I think that you could, we're saying you could convalidate some of them, and then you're sort of driven because you retook, and then you sort of, on average, near the threshold, we are finding this effect that you get to a better place in terms of your preferences, right? So it seems that you are more motivated. Now I did it. Now I'm not just gonna fall behind because I started 1 year later. So I'm gonna convalidate my courses. I'm motivated. I'm gonna end up on time. So that's what we are. Our hypothesis right now on this, but we can do more with data. So it's pretty data intensive. We have to do a lot of things there. Yeah, please.
So I'm just like, this is like, I'm really struggling with these people who are enrolled in other programs and retaking. Like, do you know if they actually missed even the cutoff the first time? Like, to me, it seems like they shouldn't even be in there. Like, they're so different than the people. I think I would want to see it just on people who didn't end up enrolling, but then I can also see that maybe if it, like, is college free in Chile? Like, I'm trying to think of the opportunity cost, right? Because if I didn't get into my top choice and I'm close, I thought my option is to not go anywhere and then try again next year. But you just showed me that they do go somewhere. But do you know whether they went to, right? Like, these retakers, maybe they went to, applied, they went to medicine, and now they're going to dental school, but it's not because they missed a cutoff the first time. It's just they don't like medicine. They want to do dental. So I think I would want to be more clear on really who is being put in which bucket and how that, because they're, to me, like, they're very different decisions and different motivations.
Yeah, no, that's a good point and something that we are working on this. And let me say you what we are doing, and if you think that that makes sense. So we are sort of building different types. So there are different. So we have one type which is let's say type 1, who is like, these are all retakers. So this the retaker that did not enroll at all, didn't enroll. And then we have other retaker, another type 2, that these are retaker that enrolled in similar area, the same area, areas like medicine, for example, or natural sciences and so on. And then we have another one which is like different area, and so on. We think that, this is one way to address what you're saying, and we think that this could explain, there may be something we don't know, but this heterogeneous effects would tell us like which one is driving the average effect. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, because I think that it's just like putting them all together. I think they're very different, right? Like some people did have a choice, and I also would want to make sure that the retakers you have in there, that they actually did indeed miss the score the first time, because it's not clear to me, right? If they enrolled in one program, maybe they didn't. So it's actually a very different, even the identification, I think there would be. But yeah, so is it free? Like if I, don't get into my top choice, should I just go somewhere else because it's relatively cheap in Chile? Like I'm not looking at spending, $100,000 like here in the US.
Yeah, there are many scholarships that you can get in that time, and now after 2016 it became free at many universities, but before that it was not free, but there were scholarships and loans that because of their existence, they were not the constraints on whether to enroll or not do not seem to be driven by lack of financial aid. But this is something that we definitely it's also on our list to check. For example, like I would like to see whether, let's say, we have something like financial aid on the vertical axis, and whether that moves smoothly near the threshold. Would that sort of get at what your point?
I was hoping for some kind of, like at the beginning, I guess, a figure of helping me understand who is. So you showed, I think, admissions to like first choice, second choice, third choice, but where do they actually go? So if you can like overlay that with the actual enrollment, like who went to those places, to help us understand the behaviors, right? Are people more likely to just drop down and take the second choice? Are they more likely and wait for the first one? Because that's how I thought the paper was going to go.
Yeah. And then there are different types of switchers. I mean, switchers within the different areas, and switchers between universities. So you need to we need to see all of those, to be honest, because that's what I was trying to kind of see as well, kind of especially the switchers between different universities, because I assume you can go up as well. I mean, sorry, we are running out of time as well. So I mean, if you have anything crucial to say in the next 3-4 minutes, and maybe you can do that and we can talk about it afterwards.
Well, this is enrollment. Let me see. No, I was just finishing. One short thing is that I did retake. I took the exam, and well, when was this? 2000. I took the exam for the first time in 2000, and then in 2000 last year I retook the exam, and of course I got one piece of myself in the newspaper because of that. And one thing that I wanted to say is that, well, in my first take, these were my scores. And then in terms of the equivalent score in 2019, so this is the 801 point, is how you would transform this 900 to the previous scale. So I did basically exactly the same.
So Chicago didn't help you there. Look at that.
No, maybe it did help, but now that I'm super old, it did. It increased. It moved me again back to when I was 18 years old. And I did better in terms of language, but the secret is that the exam was much easier in 2023. It was just reading texts and comprehending texts, and in the year 2000 it was there was a vocabulary, there was grammar. It was super hard. So I don't know. I did better, but again, sort of it felt like cheating. So yeah, I don't know. This would be like a big fat zero for me. So anyway, yeah, no, but I don't have much else to say. So yeah, I was actually enjoying this last part of the conversation.
I thought that was important, and so. Does anyone? I mean, I know Eva still has probably some things to say, but does anyone else have any? Yeah, Almas.
Thank you, Sebastian, for your presentation. Very interesting. My question is, I don't recall you mentioned anything about if there is a fee related to retake, which influences their decision to retake and also the outcome.
That's a good question. Thanks for bringing that up. No, in the year 2006, 2007, the fees were lifted up by the government. So before that, there was a fee that people, the test takers did have to pay. After that, the government is basically funding the test itself. So and that applies for the retaking too. So, but that's a good point, and we should actually talk about that in the paper, at least describe in the paper.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other? Okay, Eva, do you have any?
I think we tortured him enough. Hopefully not close enough to the Chicago standard, but
I enjoyed this a lot. Thanks a lot for the conversation, and your comments would definitely help the paper to get much better. This is super important. So I was not tortured. I enjoy these things so much. So thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, just to say that to start with as well, I think it's important to kind of understand, sort of to make it very clear what the structure is of the exam, who takes it, when does it happen, how the selection takes place, how the switching going on, just kind of descriptive things, because this is going to be one of the things where, a lot of people may not be aware of the education system necessarily. I mean, it's completely different, for instance, in the US or UK, where we have A levels, which are, people make the choices before the results are known. So all of those kind of, they're different. Sorry?
Yeah, no, I think my prior was that you were looking at people who, didn't get anywhere and then ended up getting placed well, but maybe kind of looking even at the comparisons of people who did end up taking the second choice and didn't retake, and like how did they do over the lifetime versus people who, would have been in that same position and then retook and tried that one. Like you have a lot of different options to slice the data and look at different really interesting outcomes here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are so many switchers. I mean, to look at different groups and see how they do.
And especially with like knowing the preferences, right? Because like the studies that look at whether good colleges or selective colleges matter, right? When they're comparing the people who applied to the places, like they're using sort of the same identifications, right? That because you don't want people who just went there or there, like they applied to the same places, they had the same preferences, and one decided to go there, one decided to go to the elite, one went to a state school, right? Like you have the same power here, which I think is, very rare in sort of this type of literature to have that information. So I think there's a ton that you can do.
All right, no, this is super useful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to be done too.
Okay, great. So good time to stop here. Thank you very much, Sebastian. That was really good and nice conversation as well and discussion. We look forward to seeing the working paper, and whenever it's ready, please do send us at GLO.
All right,
next month. Goodbye.